Hello, this is Paul Chek. Welcome to the red, yellow, and green of exercise. This is part one of a three-part series in which I will do my very best to give you some simple, practical education that anybody can use in concert with my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, to optimize their choice of exercise based on what the body and the mind actually need. It's extremely hard to determine what type and what volume and intensity of exercise to use if you do not have any, shall we say, objective feedback system. Most athletes, even at the elite level, are just doing what they're told to do by coaches. Most people just go by emotion or addiction to choose what they're going to do for exercise, or worse yet, the flavor of the month. So all you got to do is look at all the people getting into CrossFit, and not to pick on CrossFit, but any number of exercise. You go to any aerobic studio and see group torture going on, and most of those people really belong sleeping under a tree. And when you look at the bodies of people in these classes, lifting weights, running and jumping, it's obvious that they're in the wrong room. And it causes a lot of problems for people. That's what I do all day long, is field questions and coach people and do therapy on people that have made these mistakes and are now in pain and don't know how to get out of the problems that they've created for themselves, mostly through a lack of awareness. So today I'm going to begin our series by showing you how to use the system that I've developed for you very, very cost effectively, and how to take care of yourself. And the focus of this series is, how do I know when it's safe to do what type of exercise, how much. And the key things most people are never taught, and to be honest with you, most professionals, even at the level of elite sports team, don't know these things. I've been a consultant for more teams than I can count, and rarely ever have they got their finger on the pulse of what they should be paying attention to with athletes. They write workouts on the board, and everybody gets the same torture, or for better or for worse, and it leads to lots of trouble. So our resource for today is primarily my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. I've mocked up a copy of the score graph that is on page 37 of my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. This is one unique book because it allows you to identify what you specifically have going on as far as stressors, and there's a questionnaire to help you identify what specific diet proportions you should be using between plant foods and animal foods, and that's on page 48. This diagram is the summary diagram of how to determine how to adjust your diet for your individual needs. And then in this chapter here, I believe it's chapter 6, energizing exercises, I have, for each of these high scores that you can possibly get, I have specific zones in this book that give you highly specific exercises which are work in. They're Tai Chi type, Qigong type exercises that are specifically designed to increase the energy in your body, harmonize your body, and facilitate the healing response, balance hormonal levels, and do many, many things that you cannot do at a doctor's office or with functional medicine or any of that stuff. There's no sense going to doctors and getting pills and hormone supplements and all that stuff, or even functional medicine practitioners, because they can only take a snapshot of what you're doing at the moment, but that does not tell the doctor anything about how you got that way. That's one of the key things our culture is very slow to get. By the time a lot of people come to see me, they've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on all sorts of supplements and hormone this and pill that, and lo and behold, they haven't even addressed the very basics. So we really want to look carefully at what do you need to know about choosing your exercises to get yourself healthy. And it's not really that hard If you like this, get into HLC1. If you like that, I take you up in HLC2 to learning how to assess 29 specific systems in the body under 12 key categories, and you get much, much deeper training from a very skilled expert, and you can make a great living just sharing health and vitality. And that sounds like a good idea to me in a world that's falling apart due to intellectual silliness. Supportive information for this discussion: my multimedia ebook, The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, has all sorts of things that are not in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. My audio workbook series, You Are What You Eat, which is based on this column, You Are What You Eat, right here, has 9 hours of additional information that I had to not put in the book to keep it readable, but it's very important information that's all relevant if you want to be a healthy person and get the most out of your workouts. So let's take a little tour through what I have to share with you today. When you take the questionnaires in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, you total up your score. If your score is greater than 250, you're in the red zone. That means you're under a high level of stress. Your overall systems are under a combined total of stress that indicates that you are not going to respond favorably to more what we would refer to as catabolic stress, which is with exercise that's tissue destructive. So lifting weights, making yourself sore, elevating your heart rate, elevating your breathing rate, doing exercises at an intensity that would disrupt digestion, or doing any exercise that causes a drying effect in the mouth would be catabolic exercises, which means that it's going to increase the score and shut these systems down is what's going to happen. Okay? So the first thing is, if you don't know what's going on and you don't know which key systems in your body are contributing to the load, then you really don't know what's happening, and most people don't realize that the exercise program that they're on is actually making them worse. So they're running around to doctors and therapists to address all this, thinking it's another problem in a different zip code. But it isn't. Okay? So what I'm going to do is just give you a brief little explanation of this relationship between the catabolic forces and the anabolic forces, which I've done in many of my video blogs, but some things can never be heard enough, believe me. So let's take a look at that. Here you see my Tai Chi symbol. Yin is the feminine force. It's anabolic, which means it supports growth, repair, digestion, elimination, and tissue building and learning. The yin state is the ideal state for learning. Yang is catabolic, which means you're in a state that is stressful and or tissue destructive. That doesn't mean that it's bad. These two need each other. They're lovers. That's the she and that's the he of the dance of life. It's just that any one of these in excess causes problems, and we don't have so many people that are excess yin. You can have them, but I'd say in my clientele about, I would say 95% of people that I see are yang excess. Somebody who's a complete couch potato can get stuck over here. Someone who's eating the wrong diet for their needs can get stuck over there. Someone taking medical drugs that have specific biochemical side effects can get stuck over there. There's a few other things, but it's not very common, which is why you rarely see me or anybody else talking about it. Now you'll notice here that I've got a triangle and a little teeter-totter here. This is indicating that if you're in the red zone here, that the teeter-totter's way up high, which means you're up high on that end, which means you're low on the yin end. So as this stress factor goes higher, this goes down. The more yang you are, the more in need of yin you are. Okay? So let's look at some of the factors that lead to a high score here. that have a huge influence on how you will respond to exercise, and therefore become indicators that you need to choose your exercise methods, intensity, and duration very, very carefully, or you're going to make yourself worse. First of all, whenever you have high yang energy or a high stress score, you have increased global stress. When this goes up, you have increased resource utilization, and you have increased inflammation, increased body heat, increased energy demands. The thermoregulatory system, the system in your body that controls temperature, is the most energy consumptive system of all systems in the body. So if you work out hard, or you've got problems with inflammation in your guts, or you're eating the wrong foods, or you're overstimulating your body, you will overheat your body, and that will make you tired quite quickly, because a hot body is a body that consumes a lot of energy, and unfortunately a body that's hot causes people to crave things, and usually what they're actually craving is water, but they misinterpret that as soda pop or Kool-Aid or fruit juice or coffee or any number of things that are actually like pouring gasoline on the fire. So lo and behold, their cravings actually are misinterpreted and leads them right into a worsening of their problems. So before I go on, I want to point out here that there's 3 letters in that triangle. A for adrenaline, C for cortisol, and I for insulin. Those are your 3 primary hormones, without which you will die. All the other hormones add quality to life, help you feel better, smile more often, think better, have a better erection or a better sex drive. But these ones have to be at functional levels, or you start having very serious problems. And these 3 hormones have a massive influence on every other hormone in your body. Adrenaline is a precursor to cortisol. Cortisol is your chief anti-inflammatory hormone. It's just considered the chief hormone for helping the body deal with stress. Whenever these 2 go up, there's significant changes in blood sugar levels, and if they're not managed correctly, then you have problems with high insulin followed by low insulin. When people are under a lot of stress, they tend to consume a lot of high energy foods, which elevates insulin, but if they're eating wrong for their metabolic needs, or their what I call their primal pattern needs, then they end up having a rebound. So they bring their blood sugar way up, they release a pile of insulin, which is very stressful in the pancreas, they push all that blood sugar into muscle or fat, then they go low blood sugar, and the next thing you know, they're dragging again, and this cycle, this yo-yo, goes on all day long. So my holistic lifestyle coach level 2 and 3 practitioners would find that you have high blood sugar symptoms and low blood sugar symptoms at the same time, which is a fantastic way to burn your pancreas out and end up with lots of health problems. Also, anytime you elevate insulin above and beyond normal levels, research shows that it causes a huge sympathetic reaction, because insulin is a very, very powerful hormone in the body. So if you're jacking yourself up with blood sugar, it's very stressful on the nervous system, and it winds the whole system up. You can see how kids behave when they eat too much sugar. People literally start to shake. So whenever insulin levels are too high, it's a massive sympathetic stressor, increasing catabolic reactions. And if insulin levels are too low, you got another problem. So too high of insulin usually means you're having too much sugar, or you're getting insulin resistant, which means you're overloading the body's receptors and they're no longer responding favorably. But if the insulin levels are too low, then you can't put things into the body. That's another problem. So once you start seeing insulin levels going up and down like that, you usually have a person that's in a perpetual state of high levels of stress, and those people oftentimes have negative reactions to exercise. Many people get addicted to adrenaline. We have a culture full of adrenaline junkies, and we worship a lot of them, and we have a lot of young people that emulate them. And one of the things you need to know is that when people are stressing themselves to a point that they have a lot of adrenaline in the system, they have a lot of cortisol in the system, and both of these hormones are activators for the central nervous system. So people get quite alert and quite jacked up and quite wired, and most people in my experience can get by for about 6 months with high levels of adrenaline and cortisol before they start going into a phase 2 adrenal exhaustion stage. And while they're in this phase, they actually get tricked because that much adrenaline and cortisol tends to make people's cheeks rosy. It makes their face look like it's bright because there's a lot of circulation. They don't realize all the blood's being pushed out in a fight or flight reaction. So women tend to look a little more luscious to the untrained eye. Men look like they're turned on. And so you get this feeling of, I can do anything. And you see a lot of young people with this going on. A lot of teenagers, a lot of people in school under academic stress, pushing the edges of sleep and drinking coffee to pass tests and all sorts of stuff. The problem is when you talk to these people, they think they feel good. But it takes somebody that's trained to look behind the superficial aspects of this thing. And these two being high opens the Pandora's box, believe me. Okay? So high global stress, high resource utilization. The more wound up and sympathetically stimulated you are, remember, Yang is the system in your body that spends energy outside of itself. Yin is the in system. It brings in. Dr. Quiet, she is yin. Oh, how she loves to bring energy in. She teaches you how to rest so your energy is always at its best. Hey! Woo! Okay? Don't worry, I'm not high on adrenaline. Okay, so when you're yang, you're sucking up all sorts of resources. That's like having your foot down on the gas pedal going for it. You're increasing the utilization of oil. You're increasing the wear and tear on the entire mechanical system. You're wearing your tires out. You're wearing your bearings, your bushings, everything. So we have to remember that the body is a system of living cells that have to replace parts constantly to maintain your beautiful form. So when resource utilization goes up, if you're not hip to all these factors, what am I eating? Am I skipping meals? Do I have effective digestion and elimination? Am I overstressing myself, or do I have a fungal and parasite infection which will keep you yang, yang, yang like crazy? Then you'll see people have a tendency to keep eating more and more of the garbage that got them in trouble in the first place. And what happens is they start having a worse and progressively worser reaction to exercise stress. When inflammation goes higher because catabolic stress goes higher, so someone who's exercising too much relative to their yin capacity, remember, the higher you go up with catabolic stress, the more of an anabolic rebound you have to have. What goes up must come down. So just like losing sleep, the longer you stay up at night, the more you're going to have to sleep in to pay it back as a general rule. So if you're staying up high like that, you're going to have higher levels of inflammation, which leads to higher levels of body heat, which leads to higher levels of energy demand. And if that energy is put back in the body through bad food, Red Bull, Monster, coffee, processed sugar, junk food, all that stuff, then you cannot generate enough anabolic energy. If you're drinking poor quality water or not enough water, all these things are a death sentence for an exerciser. Okay? So then you start craving energy to counterbalance that. And like I said, if you keep feeding the wrong thing in the fire, most people are adding fire to fire, which is, the cultural silliness that we're dealing with. Breathing typically starts to speed up. So as you become more sympathetic, you start seeing the breathing speed up. That causes an outgassing of too much CO2, which then overexcites the system, facilitates the activity of calcium in the muscles, and leads to muscle tension and muscle cramping. So you see a lot of that in athletes. If you are an introvert, then they, instead of having faster breathing, start holding their breath. Breathing too fast or breathing too slow disrupts the pH balance of your body, and either way you go, you run into trouble. Okay? So if we're not careful, this behavior and not knowing how to manage this leads to breathing problems, and breathing is your chief system for cultivating life force energy in the body, and it's the first system you need to address, and all Chek practitioners are taught how to assess breathing for that very, very reason. Your resting heart rate will usually start going up, so if you monitor your morning heart rate, first thing in the morning before you get out of bed, before you get into any foreplay or get up and go to the toilet, take your resting heart rate, plot that out for a week, take an average. If your resting heart rate starts rising up more than 3 to 4 beats, it means that you're developing a high enough level of stress that you need to be very, very cautious with any working out activities, because A, you could get sick, B, you could get injured quite easily. In my upcoming athlete management program that I'm going to be releasing in the next probably 6 months here, I will open this class to anybody that wants to come to show you how to monitor several key things that are easy to do but beyond this class or this little lesson. Resting heart rate we talked about. Soreness. As you get more and more catabolic, you start noticing that not only are the muscles and the joints that you're using with exercise sore, but your whole body starts to get sore. So you start to see things like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, and those class of symptoms, which is usually just the side effects of chronic imbalance and perpetual ignorance, unfortunately. Dryness. The body gets more and more dry. Remember, yang relates to fire in the basic elemental theory. Yin relates to water. So your 4 elements, earth, water, fire, and air, all of which act themselves out in space. Yang is fire and air. Yin is earth and water. So if this goes up too high, you get too much air and too much fire, which causes problems on this end. Too much air dries you out, too much fire dries you out. So hyperventilation is too much air, incorrect breathing. Next, as this goes higher, you're highly likely, unless you're a vegetarian, to get too much acid in the system. And even if you're a vegetarian athlete training this way, you could still get to be too acid. I've seen that with live cases. So whenever you start getting too much acid in the system, you break down the energy production systems in the body, you start to get tired, mind starts to get foggy. I could give you a long list of things. So what do you need to do if you're high catabolic energy, you're in the high score here? Some of the things you got to be extremely careful with are alcohol, sugar, coffee, processed foods, and electromagnetic stress, because all of these things are not only stressors in themselves, but every one of these things can completely disrupt your sleep quality and your sleep cycle, which leads to a loss of the chief free source of energy, sleep. Okay? So how do we counterbalance this? Well, we've got to the degree that you have these yang elements going on, you must get good quality sleep. Read the chapter on sleep in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. There's a lot of information you need. You have to get good nutrition, organic, high-quality foods. Stop making excuses about how expensive organic food is, because running around to doctors and taking pills and destroying yourself slowly so you're a dead man walking is more expensive than organic food. Hydration is critical. So if you're not drinking water according to the principles I shared in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, you can get yourself in trouble. Many people, even drinking enough water of low quality or too much of an acidic water, lower than 7 on the pH scale, or dead water, will end up having problems with hydration. In other words, you can be drinking enough but show signs of dehydration. Remember, your breathing has to be regulated properly. You got to learn to breathe properly. In my multimedia ebook, The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, I show you how to assess your breathing and make corrections right in there. You must support your detoxification pathways. Remember, when you're breaking tissue down, you're producing metabolic waste and toxins. So if you're exercising, but you're not doing the things you need to do, such as drinking water and eating enough leafy greens and plant foods and live foods. People eat too much dead food. You got to eat as much raw food as your body comfortably can handle, not more, but as much as you can handle. That supports detoxification, as does sweating and too many things for me to go into right now, but just following this program is a great way to get your detoxification systems going. You have to have digestion and repair, so you have to have an environment that supports digestion and repair to counterbalance all that. You must harmonize your biological oscillators, which are your brain, your heart, and your digestive system. Without going into a long detailed explanation, when the body is working correctly, at rest especially, or at low intensity exercises such as working in, the brain, the heart, and the digestive system all work in parallel, like dancers dancing in a choreographed dance, which decreases the energy demand on the body, increases life force potential and energetic potential. So we need pumping, which is very, very important for producing energy and cleaning the body. It must be rhythmic, not arrhythmic. Arrhythmic activity at large usually is a catabolic stressor and will not harmonize biological oscillators. Stretching is very, very important because stretching enhances awareness. It shows you where your body's tightening up. Then using the diagrams in Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, you can notice, for example, geez, my hamstrings are constantly tight. That relates to zone 1, which is related to safety and security issues psychologically and financially. And it guides you to what area of your life to look into to see what you might be reacting to at a mental, emotional level as well as a physical level. Cold water is extremely supportive. It's highly yin. So again, pretty much free energy. Taking hot showers and hot baths when you're over here just adds to the problem. So cold water therapy is very, very effective and very, very cheap. You can use hot-cold combinations, but you always want to start and finish with cold. I recommend between 30 seconds and 1 minute hot, say in the shower, followed by 30 seconds to a minute cold. Oscillate back and forth. A good session would be 10 rounds. Again, finish with cold. Working in only. If you're in the red zone, this is the medicine that's hard for most athletic people to take. You should only be working in. If you score here, working out for you is a bad idea. And if you keep doing it, well then, you might as well face it, you're addicted to stress. Okay. Our tips, work in. What is a work in? Well, you can study the book, and it gives you very clear definitions, but I'll give you a freebie. Working in is a technique or a methodology that I developed, so you won't find it in other books unless people are referencing my work. Working in, by definition, means that the intensity level of the exercise is low enough that your breathing rate does not speed up. So you need to know what your resting pulse is, or you'll bullshit yourself. Your heart rate should not speed up above resting. You should be able to do it on a full stomach, and the more athletic and addicted to stress you are, the more I am likely to feed you a big meal before I teach you how to work in, because if you have enough food in your stomach, once you start going into the workout zone and activating the sympathetic nervous system as the dominant working system, it makes you feel lousy. Not many people want to get up from a Thanksgiving dinner and go do repeat 40-meter sprints in the backyard. So it just aids learning, and your tongue should stay moist. As the sympathetic system gets wound up, the tongue and mouth tend to dry out. The tongue's actually part of the visceral system. It's a muscle, but the glossopharyngeal system is really an extension of the visceral system. So as long as your heart rate stays at resting, your breathing rate stays at resting, your digestion is facilitated, and your tongue stays moist, then any activity you're doing is going to be a useful work-in exercise. Our next tip is whenever you're in the red zone, you want to use as much cyclical exercise as you can. So things like walking are fantastic. You don't need any equipment. You can all do it If you can't walk and you're in a wheelchair, then roll, baby. Let it roll. Keep in that work-in zone. Cyclical exercises are very helpful because cyclical exercises calm the ego center. We will call these cyclical exercises that work in intensities active meditation. The simpler the exercise, the better, because you don't want your ego having to be overly engaged. If you get, for example, on a rowing machine, like a standard gym rowing machine, and you just use real easy efforts, or you're just walking, then the ego actually begins to get cocky and think, oh, this is so easy, I don't need to pay attention. That's when the door to the superconscious and or the unconscious opens, and there's a calming effect on the mind. So you actually can get into meditative states quite easily with cyclical exercises that are just enough that the ego has to pay attention, but then falls asleep. You have to pay attention to where you're walking. You might step in a pothole or step on a rock. When you're on a rowing machine, you still have to pay just enough attention you don't fall off of it. When you're riding a bicycle, you can relax, but you have to pay just enough attention that you don't fall off. So you become what I call a snake sleeping with one eye open. Half in, half out, which is great awareness training. You learn to relax and feel what's going on. So we want cyclical pumping exercises that harmonize the biological oscillators and for specific therapeutic effects. Walking is just global. But if you look in chapter 6 and you look at where your high scores are, I created very specific exercises to lower the scores in each of these key systems. So now exercise becomes much more, shall we say, surgical in its application, and it works really well. Okay, so then we've got, if you're going to do work-in exercises and your high score, obviously you're going to want to start with the highest score you've got. In the system that I developed for you, you always remember the rule that if you have all high scores up here, or 3 or 4 of them, the one furthest to the left is the one you need to address first. I won't explain why, but just know that there's something going on up here. And I organize this so you know exactly what you got to do in order to facilitate rapid healing. If you don't like working on that one, then work on the one that you're willing to work on. Remember, the best exercise in the world is the one that you're willing to do regularly, as long as you're not burning yourself out with it. Okay, so stretching and rolling using a foam roller, a 4-inch or a 6-inch foam roller. Roll your body out. Look for painful spots and muscles. Roll them out. It's a form of self-massage, but it's a great technique for enhancing body awareness. And you learn about yourself, and you can use the diagrams in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Say, geez, I keep getting all this soreness in my pectoralis area, my pec minor, it depends on how well you know your muscles, but my chest. What's that relate to? Well, you look in there and you find it relates to zone 4. What does that relate to? Giving and receiving love. Oh my God, I'm breaking up with my boyfriend and my chest is hurting all the time. So you can actually learn that your body's always talking to you. Every day it's telling you exactly what you're doing too much of, doing too little of, and where you're bullshitting yourself. Hallelujah. Okay? So stretch and roll, baby. And then dream awareness. Whenever you're having problems like this in your body and your scores are high and you're making excuses about I gotta exercise and you're addicted to stress, you are getting feedback from your body which enhances awareness. Look at all the people that go to all these meditation seminars and mindful seminars and doing psychedelics and going to churches, all of that, and what's happening? We're the sickest, fattest, dumbest people we've ever been on the planet, while we're at the same time the smartest people with the most PhDs, and we keep making stupid mistakes because we're not cultivating awareness. So by knowing what your dream is and getting clear when your choice of exercise, diet, and lifestyle factors is actually dream affirmative, is the only real spiritual growth there is. I don't care if you can recite the Bible. If you've got a screwed up body and you beat the hell out of yourself with exercise, you haven't learned anything. You're just a parrot. And there's plenty of those around. Okay? So look at, under awareness, look at what your mind, look at what your thoughts. If you're getting a bunch of stinking thinking, just ask yourself, is those thoughts dream affirmative? If they're not, say, thank you, dear pain teacher, for showing me where I have a mind virus. State your dream out loud, and then choose in a way that is dream affirmative. What do I want to look like? What do I want to feel like? And what kind of a body do I need to be my dream? To be a healthy mother, a healthy father, a great skier, a great dancer, or a great lover. Whatever it is, once you got a dream, you have a reason to choose in a way that supports you. What's your mind and your emotions doing? What's your body doing? Women, what's your hormonal system doing? If you're a female and you've got any kind of gynecological problems, the first thing you got to do is get rid of the coffee, get rid of the processed sugar, and get rid of stimulants, and be very careful, you chocoholics. If you're not eating organic chocolate, you are dosing yourself up, probably with the pesticide called lindane, which is the one most commonly used on chocolate, which is a neurotoxic hormone which causes shitloads of problems for women. Okay? Next, if you have fungal and parasite infections, which 90% of the world population does, and it's so common, I developed a DVD series to show you exactly how you need to address these very potentially serious problems that do cause people to die, that do cause tumors, that do cause organs to get eaten up, that cause bugs to get into eyes, hearts, livers, kidneys, you name it. I've seen more people get screwed up from parasite and fungal infections than you can shake a stick at. But I show you in this program how to get this problem addressed effectively, cost-effectively, and efficiently for the long run, and very few people in the world teach you what you must learn to manage that. And remember, the fastest way to get yourself a fungal or a parasite infection is just run that score right up here, and you become a glowing red target for parasites, and you send a message to Mother Nature that you're not healthy enough to contribute to the overarching plan, and she sends her little cops to eat you and put you back in the soil. But the process is quite slow and painful and can be extremely expensive. So don't wait till you've got fungal and parasite infections to have to learn how to take care of yourself, because you will have to walk 1,000 miles to find one doctor that actually will recognize what's really going on with you, and you may lose glands and organs and body parts before you finally figure out that it's all the side effects of eating and living like the average American on a sad crap diet. Standard American diet, carbohydrates, refined foods, additives, and preservatives. Sad crap. Okay, we've covered it. That was my short lesson. You know, these things are deep, man. It's hard to do this quick stuff. But I taught you enough today to change your life if you just get my book and get these resources and fully participate in your life and quit waiting for someone to come rescue you. God ain't going to do it, because God loves it all. God doesn't mind if you want to be a sick person. God says, yeah, baby, let's do it. Boring, but I'll do it with you. So you're it. See you next time.